My name is Nathan, and I'm about to tell you a story that will make you question everything you think you know about trust, marriage, and the strange ways life reveals its secrets. This is the story of how a single dream destroyed my world, but also saved me from living a lie. It was March 15, 2024 when my life changed forever. But to understand that day, I need to take you back to where it all began. I met Chloe 5 years ago at a charity barbecue in Austin, Texas. She was volunteering at the medical tent, and I was there fixing the broken grill that was supposed to feed 300 people. I remember watching her work, so focused, so caring with every person who came to her with minor cuts and burns. When she finally took a break, I offered her the first perfectly grilled burger of the day. "You saved the whole event," she said, taking a bite. "I'm Chloe, by the way. Professional lifesaver by day, apparently barbecue ruiner by weekend." I laughed. She had this way of making everything seem lighter. Nathan. Professional fix-it guy, amateur grill hero. That was it. That moment. I knew I wanted to know everything about this woman who could make jokes while tending to other people's wounds. We dated for 2 years before I proposed. I did it right there at the same barbecue 2 years later. Got down on one knee right by the grill where we first met. She said yes through tears and laughter, and everyone cheered. It felt like a movie moment, perfect, scripted, meant to be. Our wedding was small but beautiful. Chloe looked stunning in her grandmother's vintage dress, and when she walked down that aisle in the little church outside Austin, I felt like the luckiest man alive. We honeymooned in Colorado, spent a week hiking and talking about our future. Kids maybe. A bigger house eventually. Growing old together. For 3 years we were happy. Really, genuinely happy. I worked at Rodriguez Auto Shop, specializing in classic car restoration. It wasn't glamorous, but I loved bringing old beauties back to life, and it paid well enough. Chloe worked as a registered nurse at Austin General Hospital, mostly in the emergency department. She loved the chaos, the adrenaline, the feeling that she was making a difference every single day. Our routine was comfortable. I'd wake up at 6 a.m., make coffee for both of us. Chloe would stumble out of bed 15 minutes later, somehow looking beautiful even with messy hair and sleepy eyes. We'd sit at our small kitchen table, sharing sections of the newspaper, planning our day. I'd kiss her goodbye at 7:30 when she left for her 8 a.m. shift, and she'd usually be home by 6 p.m. for dinner. But sometime around last December things started to shift. It wasn't dramatic at first. Subtle changes that I told myself were normal. Marriage evolves, right? People go through phases. Chloe started working longer hours, or at least she said she was working longer hours. The hospital was understaffed, she explained. The emergency department was seeing more patients than ever. Budget cuts meant they were all pulling extra shifts. She'd come home exhausted, sometimes not until 9 or 10 p.m. She'd barely eat dinner, would take a long shower immediately after getting home, and then collapse into bed. Our conversations became shorter, more functional. "How was your day?" "Fine. Tired." "How about you?" "Good. Fixed a 67 Mustang today." "That's nice, honey." I missed our longer talks, but I understood. Healthcare workers were burned out everywhere. I tried to be supportive. I'd have dinner ready when she got home, no matter how late. I'd rub her shoulders when she was tense. I'd handle more of the household chores so she could rest. The phone call started in January. I'd hear her talking quietly in the other room, and when I'd walk in, she'd quickly end the conversation. "Just work stuff," she'd say. "You know how it is." But there was something different about her voice during those calls. Softer. More animated than she'd been with me in weeks. Then there were the changes in her appearance. Not dramatic. Chloe had always taken care of herself. But she started wearing makeup to work more often. She bought new scrubs, ones that were more fitted than her usual baggy hospital wear. She got her hair highlighted for the first time in years. When I complimented her on the highlights, she seemed flustered. "Oh, these? I just thought it was time for a change. You know how it is." But I didn't know how it was. In 5 years together, Chloe had never been someone who made sudden changes to her appearance. She was practical, consistent. The highlights were beautiful, but they were also unlike her. February brought more changes. She started taking her phone with her everywhere, even to the bathroom. She'd sleep with it next to her pillow instead of on the nightstand where it used to charge. She changed her passcode, claiming she needed something more secure for work-related apps. Most telling of all, our physical intimacy nearly disappeared. We went from making love 2 or 3 times a week to maybe once every 2 weeks. When we did, she seemed distracted, like her mind was somewhere else entirely. I tried talking to her about it. "Are we okay, Chloe? You seem distant lately." "I'm just stressed with work, Nathan. This isn't about us." I love you. I'm just going through a rough patch. I wanted to believe her. I did believe her, mostly. Marriage has ups and downs, right? Everyone goes through periods where they're less connected. It would pass. But deep down something felt wrong. I couldn't put my finger on it, but there was this nagging feeling in my gut that wouldn't go away. Then came the night of March 14th. I went to bed around 10 p.m. Chloe was still at work, another late shift, she'd said. I fell asleep alone, which had become increasingly common. The dream was so vivid, so detailed, that when I woke up I was confused about whether it had actually happened. In the dream I was walking through Austin General Hospital. I don't know why I was there. In the dream logic I was just there, walking down a long corridor lined with windows. The lighting was that harsh fluorescent hospital lighting that makes everything look slightly unreal. I turned a corner and saw two people standing by a large window at the end of the hallway. One was Chloe, wearing her burgundy scrubs, the new fitted ones. The other was a tall man in a white doctor's coat. He had dark hair, maybe in his early 30s, with the kind of confident posture that suggested he was used to being the smartest person in the room. They were standing close together, closer than colleagues should stand. And then, as I watched, he cupped her face in his hands and kissed her. Not a friendly kiss, not a professional kiss. A passionate, intimate kiss that spoke of familiarity and desire. What made the dream so disturbing was how right it looked. How natural. Like they'd done this 1,000 times before. In the dream I called out to her, but no sound came from my mouth. I tried to run toward them, but my feet wouldn't move. I was trapped, watching my wife kiss another man, unable to do anything about it. I woke up at 4:17 a.m. with my heart racing and sweat covering my body. Chloe was next to me in bed, sleeping peacefully. Her phone was clutched in her hand, which I found odd. She'd never slept holding her phone before. I gently moved it to the nightstand and watched her sleep for a few minutes, trying to shake off the unsettled feeling the dream had left me with. It was just a dream, I told myself. A weird, anxiety-induced dream brought on by the stress of the changes in our relationship. My subconscious was probably processing my worries about her working so much, being around doctors all day. It didn't mean anything. But I couldn't get back to sleep. The next morning, March 15th, started like any other. I made coffee, started breakfast. Chloe emerged from the bedroom looking tired. She'd gotten home after midnight, she said. I handed her coffee and watched her face, looking for, what? Signs of guilt? Evidence that my dream had been somehow prophetic? She looked normal. Tired but normal. Same Chloe I'd been married to for 5 years. We sat down for breakfast and I decided to tell her about the dream. Not because I suspected anything, or at least not consciously, but because it had been so vivid, so unsettling. We used to share everything, including weird dreams. Maybe talking about it would help me shake off the strange feeling it had left me with. I had the weirdest dream last night, I said, buttering my toast. I kept my tone light, conversational. Want to hear about it? Chloe looked up from her cereal. Sure, honey. What kind of weird? I dreamed I was walking through your hospital and I saw you kissing some doctor by a window. Tall guy, dark hair, white coat. It was so realistic I woke up thinking it actually happened. I was watching her face as I said it, not suspiciously, just gauging her reaction to my weird dream. What I saw made my blood freeze. The color drained from Chloe's face so quickly I thought she might faint. Her spoon, halfway to her mouth, began trembling so violently that cereal spilled back into the bowl. Her eyes went wide with what could only be described as terror. What did he look like exactly?" she whispered. The question hit me like a physical blow. Why would she want details about a man from my dream unless? Chloe? I set down my toast, studying her face. Why does it matter what he looked like? It was just a dream. She set down her spoon with shaking hands. How could you dream something so specific? It was random, Chloe. Dreams are random. Why are you reacting like this? That's when she made the mistake that changed everything. Oh God, Nathan, how did you find out? Did someone at the hospital see us? Did they tell you? The words hung in the air like a confession written in fire. I stared at my wife, this woman I thought I knew completely, and watched her face crumble as she realized what she'd just admitted. Chloe, I said slowly, find out about what? She tried to backtrack. I meant how could you dream? I didn't mean. But it was too late. Her reaction had told me everything I needed to know. My random dream hadn't been random at all. Somehow, impossibly, I had dreamed about something that was actually happening. Who is he? I asked. She started crying. Not the gentle tears of someone who's been caught in a small lie, but the kind of desperate, panicked crying of someone whose world is collapsing. Nathan, please let me explain. Who is he, Chloe? Through her tears she told me his name, Dr. Roger Hartley. He was a new surgeon who joined the hospital in December. Cardiothoracic surgery. He'd done his residency at Johns Hopkins, was considered brilliant, destined for great things. It started as just professional conversations, she said, the words tumbling out between sobs. He was new, didn't know anyone. I was just being friendly, showing him around, introducing him to people. I sat there listening to my wife confess to an affair, and felt like I was watching someone else's life fall apart. Then we started having coffee together. Just in the cafeteria, talking about work, about Austin, helping him settle in. It was innocent, Nathan. I swear it was innocent at first. At first, I repeated. He was going through a difficult divorce. His wife had left him when he decided to move here for the job. He was lonely and I felt bad for him. We started texting just as friends. Then meeting for drinks after work sometimes. Still just as friends. I could see where this was going, but I needed to hear all of it. When did it become more than friendship? She wiped her eyes with a napkin, leaving streaks of mascara on her cheeks. 6 weeks ago. We were working late on a difficult case, a car accident victim who needed emergency surgery. We'd been in the OR for 8 hours straight. Afterward we were exhausted, emotional. We went to get coffee to decompress and we were talking about the patient, about life and death, and you kissed him. He kissed me first, but yes, I kissed him back. And then we went to his apartment. The detail hit me like a punch to the stomach. Not only had she been unfaithful, but she'd been going to his place. Multiple times, presumably. How many times, Chloe? Nathan, please? How many times have you been to his apartment? She closed her eyes. Maybe 15 times. Usually after late shifts. I'd tell you I was working late, but I'd be with him. 15 times. My wife had been living a double life for 6 weeks, lying to my face every single day, going to another man's bed while I waited for her at home with dinner getting cold. Do you love him? I asked. The question seemed to break her completely. She buried her face in her hands and sobbed so hard her whole body shook. I don't know, she finally said. I'm so confused, Nathan. I love you. I've always loved you. But with Roger I feel different. Excited. Like I'm someone else entirely. Someone else entirely. That phrase would echo in my mind for months afterward. I stood up from the table, needing to move, needing to think. I need some air. Nathan, wait. Please let me explain more. Let me make this right. Make it right? I turned back to her. You've been cheating on me for 6 weeks. You've been lying to me every single day. You've been in another man's bed while I've been home wondering why my wife doesn't want to touch me anymore. How exactly do you make that right? I'll end it, she said desperately. I'll transfer departments. I'll find another job if I have to. Nathan, please don't give up on us. But I was already giving up. Not on us, on her. On the woman I thought she was. I need time to think, I said. I'm going to Kyle's. Kyle Henderson was my best friend since high school. He lived about 20 minutes away and had a couch that had seen me through a few rough nights over the years, though never anything like this. I threw some clothes in a bag while Chloe sat at the kitchen table, crying. As I headed for the door, she called after me. Nathan, that dream you had. How could you have known? How could you have dreamed something so specific? I stopped at the door. It was a good question. How had I dreamed about her affair with such accuracy? The location, the man's appearance, even the way they kissed, it had all been exactly right. I don't know, I said. Maybe I knew more than I realized. Maybe I was seeing signs I wasn't ready to acknowledge consciously. But you described him perfectly. You've never even seen him. That gave me pause. She was right. I had described Dr. Roger Hartley in detail before she told me his name or what he looked like. Tall, dark hair, early 30s, confident bearing. How had I known that? Maybe you talk in your sleep, I said, though I didn't believe it. Maybe you said his name, described him. I don't know, Chloe. Right now, how I dreamed it is the least of my concerns. I left her sitting at that kitchen table and drove to Kyle's apartment. Kyle took one look at me and opened a beer. What happened? I told him everything. The months of changes in Chloe's behavior, the dream, her confession, all of it. He listened without interrupting, occasionally shaking his head or muttering curses under his breath. So what are you going to do? He asked when I finished. I don't know. Part of me wants to fight for the marriage. 5 years, Kyle. We built a whole life together. And part of you? Part of me feels like I don't even know who she is anymore. The woman I married wouldn't have done this. Couldn't have done this. She was honest, loyal, straightforward. This person who's been lying to me for weeks, sneaking around, living a double life. I don't know this person. Kyle was quiet for a moment. You know what bothers me most about this story? What? The dream, man. That's some seriously weird stuff. You dreamed about her affair before you knew it was happening, down to specific details about what the guy looked like. That's not normal. He was right. It wasn't normal. In all the emotional chaos of discovering Chloe's betrayal, I'd almost forgotten how strange the dream itself had been. You think it means something? I asked. I think maybe your subconscious was picking up on more than you realized. Maybe you'd seen this Roger guy before, at the hospital when you picked Chloe up from work or in photos on her phone or something. Maybe your brain was processing clues you didn't consciously notice. It was a logical explanation, but it didn't feel right. I'd never been to Chloe's hospital. She'd never shown me photos of coworkers. There had to be another explanation. I spent the weekend at Kyle's trying to decide what to do. Chloe called and texted constantly. She wanted to talk, wanted to explain more, wanted to work on our marriage. She promised she'd already ended things with Roger, sworn she'd never see him again outside of necessary professional interactions. But every time I thought about forgiving her, I remembered her sitting at our kitchen table, asking how I'd found out, assuming someone had told me about the affair. The casual way she'd asked about details of my dream. She hadn't been devastated to be discovered, she'd been panicked about how much I knew. That told me everything about where her priorities were. On Sunday evening I made my decision. But I wasn't going to handle it the way Chloe expected. Monday morning I called in sick to work and drove to the office of Patricia Morales, a divorce attorney Kyle had recommended. She was a small, fierce woman in her 50s who had a reputation for being thorough and discreet. I want to file for divorce, I told her. My wife has been having an affair. Do you have evidence of the affair? She asked. She confessed to it. Good. That makes things simpler. Any children? No. Significant assets to divide? A house with about $40,000 in equity, 2 cars, some savings. Nothing too complicated. She nodded, taking notes. I can have papers drawn up by Wednesday. How do you want to serve them? This was the part I'd been thinking about all weekend. I want to deliver them myself. In a specific way. I explained my plan to Patricia. She raised an eyebrows but didn't object. Unusual but legal. Are you sure about this approach? I'm sure. Wednesday afternoon I picked up the divorce papers. Instead of going home, I drove to Austin General Hospital. I'd never been inside before, but I found my way to the emergency department easily enough. I asked to speak with the charge nurse and explained that I needed to deliver some important documents to my wife, Chloe Henderson. She's with a patient right now, the charge nurse said. But she should be free in about 20 minutes. You can wait in the family area. Actually, I said, could you tell me where Dr. Roger Hartley's office is? I have something for him as well. The charge nurse gave me directions to the surgical wing. I took the elevator to the 4th floor and found his office. The nameplate on the door read, Dr. Roger Hartley, MD Cardiothoracic Surgery. I knocked. Come in, came a voice from inside. I opened the door and got my first real look at the man who'd been sleeping with my wife. He was exactly as I'd seen him in my dream. Tall, dark hair, confident posture. He was sitting behind a desk, reviewing what looked like surgical notes. When he looked up at me, I saw recognition flicker in his eyes, though we'd never met. You're Nathan, he said. It wasn't a question. You're Roger. Also not a question. He set down his pen and leaned back in his chair. I suppose you're here about Chloe? I am. There was a moment of silence. He looked uncomfortable but not afraid. If anything, he seemed resigned, like he'd been expecting this conversation. Look, Nathan, he said finally, I want you to know that I never intended for things to go as far as they did. Chloe is an amazing woman, and she was very conflicted about the whole situation. Conflicted enough to keep doing it for 6 weeks, I pointed out. He had the grace to look ashamed. You're right. We both made poor choices. I take full responsibility for my part in this. I pulled out an envelope and placed it on his desk. This is for you. He opened it and read the letter inside. His expression grew increasingly puzzled as he read. The letter was simple. Dr. Hartley, thank you for taking such good care of my wife over the past 6 weeks. I appreciate you showing her the attention and affection that I apparently wasn't providing adequately. As of today, she's completely free to pursue whatever relationship she chooses with you, as I am filing for divorce. I hope you'll both be very happy together. I have no hard feelings toward you personally. Chloe is a grown woman who made her own choices. Best regards, Nathan Henderson. P.S. I thought you should know that Chloe told me this morning that she's madly in love with you and planning to move in with you as soon as our divorce is final. I hope you're prepared for that level of commitment. The last part was a complete lie, but I wanted to see how he'd react. His face went pale as he read the postscript. Nathan, he said, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Chloe and we haven't discussed any kind of future together. This was never about love or moving in together. It was just what? Just physical. A fling. I'm not looking for a serious relationship with anyone right now. I just got out of a messy divorce myself. Perfect. Exactly what I'd hoped to hear. Well, I said, you might want to have a conversation with Chloe about expectations then. She seems to have gotten some different ideas. I left him sitting there, staring at the letter, and went back down to the emergency department. Chloe was just finishing with a patient when I arrived. When she saw me, her face lit up with hope. Nathan, I'm so glad you came. Does this mean you want to talk? To work things out? Actually, I said loud enough for her colleagues to hear, I came to bring you these. I handed her the divorce papers. The color drained from her face as she realized what they were. Several nurses and doctors in the area turned to look, sensing drama. Nathan, please not here, she whispered. Here's fine, I said. After all, this is where it all started, right? Seems fitting that it should end here too. She opened the folder and saw the papers inside. Her hands started shaking. You don't mean this, she said. We can work through this. All marriages go through rough patches. 6 weeks of sleeping with another man isn't a rough patch, Chloe. It's betrayal. By now we had an audience. I felt bad for embarrassing her at work, but part of me felt like she deserved it. She'd embarrassed our marriage after all. I've already spoken with Roger, I continued. Interesting guy. Did you know he thinks your relationship was just physical? That he's not looking for anything serious? You might want to check your assumptions about your future together. The look on her face told me she hadn't known that. Good. Nathan, please, she said, tears starting to flow. Don't do this. I love you. I made a terrible mistake, but I love you. You love the security I provide, I said. You love having someone to come home to when your excitement with Roger wears off. But you don't love me enough to have been faithful to me. I turned to leave, then stopped and looked back at her. Oh, and Chloe? That dream I had? I still can't explain it. Maybe it was intuition. Maybe it was luck. Or maybe the universe was just tired of watching me live a lie. I left her standing there in the emergency department, holding divorce papers and crying in front of her coworkers. The next few days were a whirlwind of phone calls, texts, and increasingly desperate attempts by Chloe to contact me. She left voicemails begging for forgiveness, promising to do anything to save our marriage. She showed up at Kyle's apartment twice, crying on the doorstep until Kyle threatened to call the police. But the most interesting development came 3 days later. I was having dinner at a diner near Kyle's apartment when my phone rang. The caller ID showed Chloe's number, but when I answered, it wasn't Chloe's voice. Nathan? This is Roger Hartley. I was surprised. Dr. Hartley. What can I do for you? I need to talk to you about Chloe. And about that letter you left me. What about it? She came to see me after you served the divorce papers. She was upset. Very upset. She told me that you'd told her I was in love with her and wanted her to move in with me. I almost laughed. Chloe had twisted my lie completely around. That's not what I told her, I said. But go on. She said she realized she was in love with me too, and that now that you were divorcing her, we could be together properly. She wanted to know when she could move into my apartment. And what did you tell her? There was a long pause. I told her that I think she'd misunderstood the nature of our relationship. That I wasn't looking for anything serious. That maybe it would be best if we stopped seeing each other entirely. How did she take that? Not well. She accused me of using her, of leading her on. She said I'd destroyed her marriage for nothing. She caused quite a scene in the hospital cafeteria. I could picture it. Chloe, realizing that she'd lost both her husband and her lover in the same week, having a public meltdown. Why are you calling me about this? I asked. Because I wanted you to know that I never made her any promises about a future together. I never told her I loved her. I never led her to believe we were anything more than what we were. Which was a mistake. A serious error in judgment on both our parts. I appreciated his honesty even if it came too late to matter. I also wanted to apologize, he continued. Not just for the affair but for not ending it sooner. I knew she was married, knew it was wrong, but I was selfish. I was lonely after my divorce and she made me feel less alone. That's not an excuse, just an explanation. Apology accepted, I said. For what it's worth, I don't blame you entirely. It takes two people to have an affair. Thank you for that. And Nathan? I hope you know that whatever Chloe felt for you was real. She talked about you constantly. She felt genuinely guilty about what we were doing. If she felt so guilty, why didn't she stop? I think she was trying to have both worlds. The security and love she had with you, and the excitement and newness she felt with me. She thought she could manage both without anyone getting hurt. But that's not how life works. No, he agreed. It's not. After I hung up, I felt a strange sense of closure. Not forgiveness exactly, but understanding. Chloe hadn't set out to destroy our marriage. She just made increasingly poor choices until she'd backed herself into a corner where destruction was inevitable. The divorce proceedings moved quickly. Chloe signed the papers without contest. We sold the house and split the proceeds. She kept her car, I kept mine. We divided our savings and our possessions with minimal drama. The only contentious moment came when we were dividing personal items from the house. Chloe found our wedding album and sat on the floor, looking through it with tears streaming down her face. We were so happy, she said. Look at these pictures, Nathan. We were so in love. I agreed. But that was then. It could be again. People recover from affairs. They rebuild trust. We could go to counseling. Chloe, stop. She looked up at me, hope flickering in her eyes. I'm not ending our marriage because you had an affair, I said. I'm ending it because of who you became in order to have that affair. The woman I married wouldn't have lied to me for weeks. Wouldn't have looked me in the eye every morning knowing she'd been with another man the night before. The woman I married wouldn't have been capable of that level of deception. People make mistakes. This wasn't a mistake. A mistake is kissing him once and immediately confessing. This was 6 weeks of deliberate choices. 6 weeks of elaborate lies. 6 weeks of living a double life. That's not a mistake, Chloe. That's a character revelation. She closed the wedding album and set it aside. What about that dream, Nathan? How do you explain that? It was a question that still bothered me. How had I dreamed so accurately about her affair? I've been thinking about that, I said. Maybe it wasn't really prophetic. Maybe I'd been picking up on subconscious clues for weeks. Your behavior changes, your phone habits, the way you talked about work. Maybe my brain put all those pieces together while I slept and created that dream as a way of forcing me to confront what I already suspected. Do you really believe that? I don't know what I believe. But it doesn't matter. What matters is that the dream led me to ask you about it, and your reaction told me everything I needed to know. I panicked, she said. I thought someone had seen us, had told you. I wasn't thinking clearly. No, you weren't. And that panic, that assumption that I already knew, that told me how guilty you felt. How elaborate your deception had been. We finished dividing our possessions in silence. When we were done, Chloe stood in the empty living room of what had been our home and looked around. 5 years, she said softly. 5 good years, I replied. Don't let what happened at the end erase the good times we had. She turned to me with tears in her eyes. Do you think you'll ever forgive me? I already have, I said. Not for your sake but for mine. I won't carry anger around for the rest of my life. But you won't take me back. No, I won't. She nodded, accepting what she'd known all along. I hope you find someone who deserves you, Nathan. Someone who appreciates what they have. I hope you figure out what you really want, Chloe. And I hope next time you're honest about it from the beginning. That was the last real conversation we ever had. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday in June. I'd moved into a small apartment across town and was slowly rebuilding my life. Work helped. There's something therapeutic about restoring old cars, bringing something broken back to beauty and functionality. I heard through mutual friends that Chloe had transferred to a different department at the hospital to avoid working with Roger. She was seeing a therapist, trying to understand why she'd made the choices she'd made. I was glad to hear it. Not because I wanted her back, but because I genuinely hoped she'd figure herself out and not hurt anyone else the way she'd hurt me. 6 months after the divorce was final, I got a letter from her. She'd moved to Houston to take a job at a hospital there, she wrote. She wanted a fresh start, away from all the reminders of what she'd done. The letter was an apology, but also an attempt at explanation. She wrote about feeling trapped in our routine, about missing the excitement of new love, about being flattered by Roger's attention. She wrote about how the affair had made her feel young and desirable again, how it had been an escape from the responsibilities and predictability of marriage. I know these aren't excuses, she wrote. They're just reasons, and they're selfish reasons at that. I destroyed something beautiful because I was too immature to appreciate what I had. I'm in therapy now, trying to understand why I needed that external validation so badly that I was willing to risk everything for it. The letter ended with a question that I'd been asking myself for months. Do you ever think about that dream, Nathan? How you knew exactly what was happening before I told you? I've been thinking about it a lot lately, and I wonder if maybe it was the universe's way of protecting you from living a lie any longer. Maybe it was a gift, even though it felt like a curse at the time. I never replied to the letter, but I kept it. Sometimes the universe protects us in the strangest ways. Sometimes the worst betrayals lead to the best discoveries. And sometimes, losing everything we thought we wanted is exactly what we need to find everything we actually need. My name is Nathan, and that's the story of how a dream changed my life forever. Not because it showed me something mystical or supernatural, but because it forced me to see the truth I was already living with, and gave me the courage to choose something better. Thank you for watching the video to the end. Maybe YouTube will no longer offer you my channel, so subscribe to it by clicking subscribe on the right under the video to receive new interesting stories. Also on the right of the video there is a playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to, and you can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.